Welcome to the riskadvisor.com podcast. I'm Sal Lafuri, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Jim Henry. Before we begin, we just want to remind each of you to subscribe to this show and push the like button for us. Please leave your comments, as they are really important to us. And more importantly, we would really like to get more subscribers to this show. So, Jim, we want to talk today about COVID scams, and we figured that that's got to be a risk. And we did a show on COVID vaccines and the distribution of the vaccines, and we talked about some of the problems, and it seems like now everything seems to be coming to fruition. Your thoughts on all of this?
Well, it was as predictable as sunrise. Never let a crisis go untapped, by all of the scammers out there. And quite honestly, the CDC and the waffling of assessments and advice and the politicizing of this has created so many stories and counter stories out there about what you should be doing. Don't wear a mask. Wear a mask. Wear 3 masks. You got to have the disposable and the cloth on top and triple. No. If you got the 3, then you're rebreathing your own stuff. No matter what you say, it's been said by an authority, right? So what do the scammers have? This is nirvana for them, because no matter what they make up, somebody and an authority has said it and they could quote them. Right?
So makes it legit.
It really makes it all sound so legitimate, and makes it even more enticing, for, a lot of, look, I live in New York. So here I am, I'm over 65. So I go on, trying to get in, in line for a vaccine. What a freaking nightmare navigating that. And I can imagine somebody 10, 20, 30 years older than me trying to go through this garbage. Right. And,
the system just sucks.
You can see where the elderly, or the ones that are at risk, are really motivated to try and grasp all straws and listen to some of these advertisements, scams, phishing expeditions, or whatnot, to get people, to respond. And of course, their whole angle is just get some personal information so they can go in there and fleece them, right? So,
take advantage of them.
Take advantage of them.
Yeah, it's just, the whole thing about the appointments. That's just, you go on and so in New York, right, we have the New York State system, and then you have New York City system. No 2 databases are talking to each other. So you can go on and make multiple appointments. Well, and you hear people say this, that, I got an appointment for April, but, I kept going and I got one for the end of March, and now I got one in the middle of March, and I got one in the beginning of March. And they're willing to travel and go all over the place and do what they got to do. And you sit there and you go like, so how screwed up is this? Right? Because you want to get to the public, you want to get everybody out at once. They should have had one system so that you can track, once you make an appointment, you're one and done, right?
Right.
But no, now you can have 4 or 5 appointments set up. So think of all of the appointments that once you get that shot, those 4 appointments are gone, right? Which means there were the opportunity for 4 people to actually get a shot.
What is fundamentally at the root of that is, if you refuse to associate a true identity, an identity validation with an individual, right, that entitles them to an appointment, one appointment, and only one appointment in the queue, even if it's out a month, 2 months, or whatever. And if they get more vaccines, right, then they go down, that list. They call you back, and they offer you to move it up. It is, of all the different things that could have been done, it's a disaster. Now, I'm not arguing that this all should have been centralized to the federal government, because it is very much dependent by, the distribution systems within the states and what have you. So making, as with hospital management and hospitalizations and whatnot, it's appropriate that be run, by the states. But having this thing be such a revolving door where you have all of this human capital spending time every day hitting the websites, one of my associates from work says to me, Jim, get on there now. Get on there now. They just got some vaccines. You can get in here. So I get onto the website, right? And I see one time slot. I go to hit it. By the time I hit it, it's gone, right? Well, no, you got to do it. You got to do it again in the morning. I said, you know what? This is insanity. You can't freaking do this every minute of the day. Disney figured it out with fast passes, for God's sakes. You would think with all of the expertise here that supposedly, focused on this, that we'd have a better system than this. But again, what it invites is scammers, because people get frustrated, people get desperate. So the whole point of this show is you really got to beware by anything that's coming into you, because it's going to be seeded with little elements of statements or references or disguised credibility that makes you think you're going to a legitimate site. And once you get into, an infected, or a toxic website, nothing good is going to come of that. And certainly, you're not going to get your vaccine.
All of the other stuff going on. I mean, this would be hysterical, and it would be a great comedy routine if it wasn't true, right? Yeah. But even before you get to getting the appointment, how about all the lunacy about who's essential and who's not? And we went into this in depth in one of the prior shows. You couldn't have somebody number 1, number 2, number 3, right? So what they did was, everybody's number 1, but you're 1A, 1B, 1C.
What? They were afraid they were going to run out of numbers?
Oh, I'm not essential. I'm number 1.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm important. I'm still in group 1, but I'm in group 1F.
It just, the whole thing is ridiculous. And we saw this coming. We had talked about this again in our prior show. We talked about it with, how what the difficulties are when you get into the weeds with all of it. And, you're absolutely right. When you start talking about getting somebody that, have it as a proper ID, well, then you run into the whole illegals, or I'm sorry, that's probably a bad term these days. I can't use illegals, so it's got to be undocumented or something along those lines, a guest of the country or whatever politically correct term we're using today is to that we can't document that. We can't fingerprint them. We can't fingerprint everybody, right? So what are we supposed to do? And
it's the voting fiasco all over again,
yeah.
Right? Because if you're just not going to identify, if you're not going to validate who you are, where you live, and and are you justified in being in one of the first tiers, then the rest of it all just falls out. So you got the side that doesn't care. The younger ones that think that they still got the Superman mark on their chest and nothing's going to happen to them. And then you got the seniors and at the far end. It's just way too frustrating. Anyway. Right. We just want to take a quick break just to remind everybody that you're listening to the Risk Advisor podcast hosted by Jim Henry and myself, Sal Lafreri. We're going to invite you to comment on our blog at theriskadvisor.com, and we're going to ask you to subscribe to the show. If you're interested in having one or both of us speak at an upcoming event or would like to consult with us, we're going to ask you to please give us a call or go to the webpage at theriskadvisor.com, and let's set that up. Jim, let's get into a little of the logistics portion of the show where we normally try and get into, okay, so what are these guys actually doing? How are they actually doing these things? One of the first things out there is that, again, you said it earlier, right? You can't let any good crisis go to waste. Crooks are impersonating banks. They're impersonating lenders. They're offering to help. What do you think about what are you seeing? What are you thinking? Again, because there's already some of that on the legitimate side out there, with the moratorium on some mortgage payments. There's some legitimate organizations that are out there trying to help some of the most impacted businesses and employees, from these draconian shutdowns. So, when you get a phone call or an email or a text or whatever, identifying, some organization or body, looking to help, during, if you're having financial difficulties, we're an organization, here to help. Some of them might be legitimate. You got to assume none of them are. It's not until you do your due diligence, you just don't want to respond, call back, click, do anything until you do research, to find out whether there's some legitimacy there.
And it's just not. I mean, obviously they target senior citizens because they're the easier touch, but they're targeting across the board, and they're also happen to be targeting small businesses as well. And with all sorts of offers about being able to get federal government money and send us give us the application and we'll handle this for you. So it's not even just the civilian population that's being hit on this. This is also being hit by the by small businesses. So it seems like everybody seems to be getting hit.
Right. Now that we're getting into tax season, both for businesses and for personal taxes, you're going to add that to it. There's some programs here to help you save, on your taxes because of your position or your loss of income or employment or whatnot, to be able to get some waivers or rebates or whatever they're gonna make up.
Free money.
Free money. Well, because free everything is now in vogue. Free college, free this, free that, no mortgage, no nothing. That culture, is in everybody's subconscious now. That there may be some truth to it, but you just in the immortal words of Nancy Reagan, when she was talking about trying to stop all of the drug addictions and whatnot, just say no. This is what you got to do now. You just got to say no. I am not going to respond to any of this stuff because, again, it's the probability is high that there's something fishy, pun intended, about what you're about that outreach to you, unless you know the person or the organization or whatnot. You just got to assume that this is problematic.
It just adds to another call to the day, right? You get 10, 15 of these calls that are actually competing with Nancy on your car warranty is expired.
Right.
Right. You want to renew your car warranty. Hey, one of the things that I in researching and looking at this, getting ready for the show, was looking at, and so I started giggling. Something near and dear to our heart when we talk about vaporware, right? When, anytime there's a great crisis, we see it, with 9/11, we saw it in the 93 bombing, where you see these companies coming up with technology that supposedly is great, right? And they try and sell it, right? It's going to prevent terrorism from occurring, and they sell all of this stuff. What we call vaporware, right? And we laugh a lot about this, and we have our jokes. But what's amazing is with COVID, it hasn't stopped, right? They just found another avenue to go, and what they're doing now, what these hucksters are doing, is they're claiming that they have the cure to COVID, or that there's this new technology to be able to identify COVID, or to be able to clean the air and do this and do that. And what they're doing is the claims are all false, but what they're doing is selling this as an investment opportunity. Right. People are looking at this and they're saying, "Hey, this is wait a second. There really is a need. We need to be able to clean the air. If we could find a gizmo that's going to clear the air, that's going to keep us free of COVID. Wow, this is good. And this is a $1 billion market, and people trying to get in on it."
No, investment again, whether it's an investment opportunity or an offer for help or whatever, the MO is get you to call back, get you to click on something. That's the key. Any due diligence that you do, has to be independent of any outreach outreach to you to keep you insulated, from something that has, an ulterior motive. So.
You look at what people, you look at all of these things that are coming out and the different types of hucksters that there are for, to deal with it. And then you realize that, there's a large part of the population, although I really think that as a part of the population is just getting, fatigued with COVID. I think they're at a point now where they're like, for God's sakes, let me get it and get it over with already. There's just a fatigue with it, right? But there's still, a large portion of the people that are really concerned and panicked about this and, worrying about it. And one of the things that they're being taken advantage of is these claims that there are COVID-19 medications that are out there, right? That there's a medicine that'll cure you that you can buy and you could take. And that's just another line that the hucksters are using. But it's, there are actually products that they're putting out there that have no basis in reality.
Well, anything that has, any claim, legitimate or not, that it increases your natural immunity, immunity or your immune system, is at risk of, and that's anything, any vitamin, right? Qualifies for that. But, it's interesting. Here we are recording this podcast on February 19, and the news of this within the last 24 hours here, is the trending. And the vaccines have only been out there for, 2 months now, and certainly a very small percentage, have actually been given. Yet new infections, the report this morning was that they are down 77%. So now the experts are saying, well, you know what? Maybe we actually are starting to get naturally to this herd immunity because so many people, they don't know, that have never had a symptom, but may have been exposed to the disease and didn't get it and didn't show symptoms, coupled with the ones that actually have had it. And now the 10% or whatever that are getting vaccinated, that could be resulting in first signs that we are getting to herd immunity. And one report I heard, just within the last couple of hours on the news, that was that we may reach herd immunity by April. And and again, it's a combination of a number of factors, behavioral things, mitigating, the spread. But, the main thing is that you're just getting more people that are naturally resistant because of their exposure to it already, or they're getting the the immunization. And of course, then the fewer people that are carrying it, the less spread that you're going to be getting. So, and you couple that with the fact that supposedly we're going to have more, 60% more vaccines available, as we get into March and April. So, maybe the negative, outlook of, we're not going to really get back to any level of, business normalcy till the third quarter, is overhyped, and it's actually going to get much better as we get into the later spring.
You talk about the numbers and the reporting and what, how we may be heading towards herd immunity. It is absolutely amazing to me that with all of the levels of sophistication that we have as a country, that we can't count correctly, right? That we run into this problem with this where, so you have an 80-year-old who has a heart condition who winds up getting COVID and dies from a heart attack. Is that person dead from the heart attack, who's had a long-running heart condition, died with a heart attack, or is it COVID? And there's all of this skepticism that the hospitals, if they put it off as COVID, that they're getting, they're able to get a higher reimbursement from the federal government. And whether that's true or not is, remains to be seen. But you hear all of this, from both sides. But how many cases really are COVID? And then how many cases, where you have the miss, with the miss hits, right? You go for the rapid test and you come back positive. You go for, the full-blown test and you come back negative. You just got to wonder, like, are we double and triple counting the numbers? are we attributing numbers where there's going to be people are going to be passing away? Unfortunately, it's a stage of life. It's going to happen. Are we double counting those numbers? And
there is no doubt that there is counting with an intention of fulfilling a narrative with an objective. Whether it's the teachers union digging their heels in saying we're not going back into schools until every teacher gets vaccinated, yet the follow the science ended when the leverage of the unions went against what the CDC was saying, and then the CDC starts rolling it back because they don't want to be taking an issue with the political agenda there with the current administration. This is I knew we were going to go this way when this thing got so politicized during the election, and it hasn't stopped. It hasn't stopped because now you have this level of control that a number of the government officials have gotten addicted to, and they don't want to let go, right? And yet. And yet we're seeing the numbers drop, by 77%, the latest, absolute idiocy was, as we're inviting people that were deported to come back to the border, right? Then there's all this, hubbub about whether or not we're going to shut down flights to Florida because they've got the nerve to not shut all their businesses down. It's just. It's been so freaking politicized, and again, it's added to the frustration, the frustration factor that you talk to is why, and people are sitting at home going stir crazy, they figure, well, what the hell do I got to do, right? They're listening to some of these, some of these appeals and solicitations that we're getting. So anyway, we're running into our next. Break here, so we'll take that, and then we'll try and boil all this down into some advice going forward. You are listening to the Risk Advisor podcast, hosted by myself, Jim Henry, and Sal Lafreri. We invite you to comment on our blog at theriskadvisor.com and to subscribe to the show if you are interested in having one or both of us speak at an upcoming event or would like to consult with us. Please go to our webpage at theriskadvisor.com to set that up. I think we both got our adrenaline up here good in the first two sessions. Maybe we'll try and put some sense to it here going forward. But I tell you, it is frustrating. It's very frustrating to see this so unprofessionally handled by so many aspects of our culture, really. And the contrast that with the phenomenal medical success of all of these vaccines being developed within 9 months of this thing being within a year of this thing being concocted, overseas. I'll use that term because I think we will eventually find that to be true. But in any event, this is hopefully once we put some distance between, this pandemic, in history and can hopefully truly understand how this occurred, how was this handled, how was it mishandled without it being tainted with the politics. We have to be prepared both medically and psychologically for an event like this, in the future. We had a couple of false alarms, a few years ago with SARS, again, coming out of China and what have you. But pandemics have been around since the beginning of time. Generally not more than once every few generations. And hopefully that's not going to be increasing now that technology has enabled us humans to actually not only come up with vaccines against diseases like this, but to manipulate them and in some cases create them. Again, in some cases, the weaponizing them, can be for a positive purpose of trying to come up with ways to be able to defeat a more, virulent disease. But there's also so many bad people in this world that, once they saw what happened here, they realized, wow, you really can affect the whole globe, with this. this is a lot easier than other means of creating chaos and what have you. So
it's a lot easier. I mean, I've said this all along. Think about the terrorists, right? They've been on vacation since COVID started.
Yeah.
Why strap a bomb to yourself? Why try and deploy yourself? Why blow yourself up to create murder and mayhem? We're doing it to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, anyway, trying to get onto the advice for the recommendations for the listeners. We said it a few times. You can't say it enough. Just avoid online offers for whether it's cures, it's investments, it's online offers for vaccines. If it's not coming through, as frustrating as it is, the state websites, don't do it. Then more likely than not, they're not legitimate. Again, don't click on anything. Don't click. Don't go to click on unexpected emails or email addresses. And if you get an email address that looks familiar, look closely at it. Make sure that everything in that email address is accurate, and it doesn't have some innocuous, dot, whatever after instead of .com or whatever, that could make what otherwise might look like a legitimate, address faulty.
Yeah, no, that's true, and it's so easy to do it, right? I mean, with the amount of email that we all get in the course of a day, when you look at something, you kind of just oh, Jim sent me something, and you just go right and you click on it and you go, okay, what's he saying? Or if there's an attachment to it, you just very easily. You just take it and go, it's from Jim. I'm going to click on the attachment thing and it's safe. And you wind up causing yourself a whole lot of trouble with that. Things as simple as, just the spelling of your last name, maybe move it, in my case, an iron E around, winds up, it looks like it came from me. So it's those type of things that you really got to be, you got to be careful of.
So if we look at the, hopefully the silver lining in this, as we get to herd immunity with the virus, maybe we can actually get a little herd immunity with stupidity, right?
You're asking for a lot.
With the people being bombarded by all these scams, from social media, couple that with what we've all gone through here with cyber attacks, and then the nonsense with all of the fake news that's coming from, supposedly respected, big tech sites or whatnot. We need herd immunity from stupidity, from ignorance.
Well, the comedian Ron White, right, did his entire show on "You Can't Fix Stupid." Right? This like trying to stop the water from coming over to Niagara Falls. It's just saying, you ain't going to do it.
But you know what? Even if we get it within the next 5 years, there'll be another generation of people. If we don't have anything like this, 10 years from now, and they'll be as naive. I mean, look what we went through after 9/11, right? Right after 9/11, the first decade after 9/11, there was a true awareness, a true sensitivity to what was going on, internationally. The fact that that we are continuously, under attack, either overtly or covertly. But, after a decade passes, it's out of sight, out of mind. People put it on the back burner, and that's a mistake. And it's like you had made this point, I think, in a few podcasts ago. We kind of need, we almost benefit from some bad things happening just to keep us aware of the fact that you can't be letting your guard down. It's a dangerous world. There's bad people out there. There always were. There always will be. They've got a lot more tools now to communicate with you. You would think people, with all of the means by which communications and all the sources of information that we have right now, that people would be well informed and more literate. It's not, because we've abandoned. We've abandoned the principle that every individual is responsible and accountable for their own actions and for validating their own sources of information.
Ooh, nobody's accountable anymore.
And this move to groupthink Oh, well, I belong to this clique and this is what they say, so I believe it. Just as you don't want to listen, and respond to some of these phishing exercises or whatnot, people have to step back from this groupthink mentality, because once a small group goes off in a wrong direction and then a herd of sheep follow them, that it's not a good thing. And it doesn't matter whether it's left or right. You gotta make sure that if everybody is accountable to validating and vetting, sources of information and not jumping to conclusions because it fits a particular agenda or narrative that they would like to be true, we're going to continue to be running off cliffs left and right.
We're going to run out of cliffs.
Run out of cliffs.
Run out of cliffs. Hey, one thing that I do want to mention for anybody who's listening is the fact that, the government's never going to ask you for a telephone number, your Medicare numbers, your date of birth, Social Security number. They're not going to ask you any of that. One of the latest and greatest scams going on is they realize people are calling up to get appointments. And what they're saying is, listen, we understand, you're trying to get an appointment. We saw you online. If, give us your information. We want to confirm, that you need an appointment. And if you happen to say that, well, look, I already have an appointment, they go, great, then let's just confirm your appointment that you got. And everybody's so excited about being able to get their shot and finally get an appointment. They're falling for this as a scam, as a ruse. And that's nothing more than an identity theft. So it's something that you really got to keep an eye out on. And it's just a shame that it happens.
And for any of those, suspected or not, if you report that, you can do your civic duty by letting the FTC know and report that to reportfraud.ftc.gov. And hopefully that gets followed up on. But at least you've done your part to try and identify what potentially might be something that they can they can try and curtail.
Hopefully you'd find a bureaucrat that doesn't have COVID that cares.
That's right.
All right. Let's wrap this up. You've been listening to the riskadvisor.com podcast hosted by Jim Henry and me, Sal Lafreri. We're going to ask you to subscribe to this show, as we really do need new subscribers and would like to get more people to listen. Please let your friends know about this, and let's get word of mouth moving on it. We're also going to remind you that if you're interested in having one or both of us speak at an upcoming event or would like to consult with us, please go to the webpage at theriskadvisor.com, set that up. And remember, you can hear the show on your favorite podcast platform, YouTube, and of course, stream it at theriskadvisor.com. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you tune in next week.
Now more than ever, it's critical that customers find accurate information about your business. Local Works by Yahoo Small Business makes it easy to add, edit, and publish business information across 70-plus local directories from a single dashboard. Ensure your business is found with Local Works and save 10% today by using code LWPodcast. Visit yahoosmallbusiness.com/local to find out more.
Cousin Sal here, letting you know that nobody does sports like FanDuel Sportsbook. All new users get a $1,000 risk-free bet when you sign up and make your first deposit. Just place your first bet and get up to $1,000 back if you don't win. Sign up today, FanDuel.com/Sal.
21 plus and present in Pennsylvania. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.